Welcome back, everybody. We're here working on our shipping box inside of InstaMAT, and we've looked at some various concepts of how we can mask other objects in the previous video, and also address the issues of triplanar projection versus decal. And we're going to start approaching this asset from a completely different standpoint. So this is going to be a bit of a roller coaster, and I hope that it makes sense, but we're going to get there. So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to say bye-bye to every single bit of this artwork that I did so far. Do not freak out. It's totally okay. I'm going to instead make this hypercharge cardboard as the folder instead of it being named cardboard. And I'm going to right click on this hypercharge cardboard, and I'm going to make this a prefab material. Now, Pre-Fab Material, if you've used other 3D painting software, it's very similar to what you would expect it to be, creating like a material that's added to your library. So if I look here now, I have cardboard or card as a filter here in my library on the far left. So I type in cardboard, and now I have this hypercharge cardboard that's now a prefab material, that if I bring this into a new element graph, I can just use this right away. But the other part of this that I wanted to make sure that we covered is vertex colors. And the vertex colors currently are set to red on the outside and blue on the inside. That works great because I've already assigned this, and I did that in a completely different application. But I want people to understand that they do have the power to assign vertex colors to their mesh at any time on a specific asset, so long as they use a layering project with an element graph. So we're going to look at how we can do that. So the first thing that we're going to do is start a layering project, and I'm going to call this layering project Vertex Box Colors. And I'm going to pick my package resource here, which is this asset, and I'm going to create this without a template. Now I still see the vertex colors, so I'm going to go back to my settings and make sure I'm on PBR mode. And the fact that it has vertex colors right now isn't necessarily important. The fact of the matter is, let's just imagine that it doesn't. And we're going to create a new multi-channel layer, and we're going to name this one red. And I'm going to go over here to the layer channel settings and switch that over to red all the way. So this will just be our base. And now I'm going to do green. So I'm going to do a multi-channel layer of green, RGB. So green. And we're going to take green and slide that over. But I don't want green all over the box. Let's just pretend that maybe I want to use green to mask off these edges that are exposed for our cardboard, for instance. In that case, I'm going to use the UV shell mask again. I'm going to pick UV shells, and in this instance, I am going to hold down Shift and click on those exposed edges, which are UV islands. And click, and click. And that's all set. And now I'm going to create one more multi-channel layer, and this one's going to be blue. And go to our layer projection settings, make sure that, our layer channel settings, make sure that that is set to 100% blue at 255. And then we're going to mask the inside of the box as blue. So we'll pick our UV shells, hold down Shift just to click multiples. The bottom, that one under the flap here, and right here on the side. And now we can hit cancel mesh picking, and this is all set up. So just like we made a prefab of that cardboard material, I'm going to select all these multi-channel layers, put them into their own layer group folder, and call this Vertex Color Box Element. And you would want to name this like based on the actual asset if you're working in like other projects or whatever, just for management's sake. But as a layering project, this is how you would set this up. And I'm going to create this as a prefab material by right-clicking and saying Add to Library as Prefab. You don't see it here in your package, but if you look in your library, and I change my filter to Vert, and I scroll down to the bottom, you'll see that there is a prefab material, a vertex color box element, which is exactly what we named this folder here. So let's dive into the element graph. I'm gonna do a new project and say element graph, and I'm gonna do this without a template. And the first thing I'm gonna do is just drag this right in. So we have this prefab material, and I'm gonna go over to my package, and I'm gonna pick my box asset, drag that right into mesh. And as you can see, it already did all of that work just like we would expect it to, which is great. If you right click on this and do preview as 3D material, you'll see the default unit cube. But if you need to view the actual asset that you're working on, you can just click this little pin right here and it brings up the actual asset. Now this is only applying the color to the actual box itself, not applying it to the vertices. So how do we get this color assigned to the vertices? So let's do pull off of our mesh and type in vertex. And as you can see here, there's a mesh set vertex colors function here. So we're going to pull that off, and that requires an image, which is going to be the color. And just as a comparison, I'm going to go make sure that I'm viewing this original cardboard asset. I'm going to go to my settings wheel, change the render mode to vertex colors, and go back to the 3D viewport. This is our original vertex colors. And then if we click this output pin of the mesh set vertex colors, we can see that yes, indeed, it has 100% assigned vertex colors to this mesh. Now that we have this in place, this is going to be a nice little handy thing for us going forward. We also want to get some bake data out of this too. So we're going to look at that in this video, and then we're going to look at how we can set up our images for our decal mask that we're going to set up in the next video. Let's make sure that we're no longer viewing the vertex colors because we don't need to look at that anymore. And instead, we're going to look at mesh baking. So we're going to type in mesh bake. You could also alternatively just clear all that out and type in bake. BA brings up mesh bake, which is great. And there is currently no target mesh. And since we don't have a high poly, which would be the source mesh in this case, we're just going to use the low poly as the source mesh and the target mesh. And you get results right away. There's a default normal tangent that's being generated. I know for a fact that I'm going to be using this inside of Unreal. So I'm going to make sure that normalize per fragment is turned on. Right click on this mesh bake and we do view image. You can see that since normal tangent is the only one turned on, we get view image mesh normal tangent. The shortcut for this is V. So I'm just going to hit V on my keyboard and you can see it brings up this 2D viewport. And up here at the top toolbar we have, this is our graph, and that's putting this into what is called the center canvas or center stage. If we hit the 3D viewport, it brings this up over here and shifts things around. If we hit the 2D image, then it shifts things around even more. But we get the 2D image here in the viewport, which is really, really handy, and we can zoom in pretty tight. And I really apologize for my scroll wheel on my mouse. I have no idea what's going on with it, but it is a little bit janky right now. We have this error that's happening here. We're having one that's happening here. Also along these edges, you see how this is no longer actually looking like an actual normal map at all. And it's going to be relatively flat normal map. We're more concerned about getting solid ambient occlusion and curvature and maybe position out of this bake. But that is all due to the fact that we have a ray length of 2.5%. And for those of you that are not aware of what's going on here, just as an example, over here on this side, right, we have this flap that's this flap here, this red bit, and a ray is being cast outwards and it's hitting this blue flap here. And this is the result that you see in the normal map. So if I crank this ray length down, and I'm just going to use a value that I know works, if I crank that down and allow it to do its work, then you can see those errors just pretty much disappear. And now we're getting something that we can really kind of work with, where while there are still some errors happening here, the overall mesh asset itself is going to yield really nice ambient occlusion and curvature for us going forward. So we're going to take our center stage and make it back to the graph. So I'm going to take this ambient occlusion, turn that on. And what does that look like here? If I view image, mesh ambient occlusion, then I get to see what that looks like in the viewport, which is really handy. And I can do that for the same on the curvature. Right click, view image, view curvature. This is all good right here. We're going to leave this just so we can come back to it later on. Pretty much wraps up this portion of the video as our introduction for starting an element graph and baking in Vertex colors. In the next video, we're going to look at how we can set up that decal setup that we had spent a lot of time on, to where instead of us making individual decals for every single one of these logos on every single side of this box, we're instead going to make one mask texture inside of InstaMAT that we can then repeat only 4 times around this box and save us a lot of time going forward. So hopefully it will give you ideas of how you can approach assets in the future so that your workflow is really smooth and consistent. So until then, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch, and I look forward to sharing more with you.